Hello everybody and welcome to a 7.3 Frost Death Knight Mythic Plus guide. I've been seeing a lot of guides on Frost Death Knights, or Death Knights in general, and a lot of them focus on really the raiding aspects, and I don't think enough guides go over the Mythic Plus aspect. I'm more of a Mythic Plus guy than a raid guy. I don't have tier set bonus, I don't have the proper gear, so criticism where you may. This is where I find the most fun in the game of World of Warcraft. This is where I find my sweet spot. This is where I'm at. So I'm going to go through and help you guys out for those that really just want to work on your Mythic Plus game. You have a Frost Death Knight, or a Death Knight in general, and you're willing to try out something new, something different, some Frost Death Knight, which is an interesting fact because up until 7.3 I've played Unholy this entire expansion, and since Breath of Sindragosa isn't as big of a deal, and I did find a very good obliteration spec, which we'll get into in a second, I find that Frost Death Knight is easily, in my testing, about 200 to 400k higher DPS than Frost is than Unholy. So talent-wise, we're going to jump right into it. Your 56 talent, I find Icy Talons to be the greatest. I think Runic Attenuation is a little bit difficult to work, and I don't really find it lining up well with Shattering Strikes. I like Icy Talons the best because it works with all of your other abilities. It increases your auto attacks, which gives you more Killing Machine procs, which is just super high amounts of damage. So your Frost Strike is going to be used in Obliteration, it's going to be used out of Obliteration. It's really your only runic power dump because you shouldn't be taking too much damage if you're doing the dungeons right to need to use a Death Strike, unless you get the free proc after you get a Killing Blow, but that's kind of beside the point. It doesn't use up your runic power anyway. 57, I like Freezing Fog. It's great for your AoE, and in Mythic Plus, it's more about overall damage done and overall contribution to the dungeon than it is about your DPS. I found in my testing that even at 10, 15 item levels lower, in like a plus 13, plus 15, I'm still successfully doing a lot more damage overall and equivalent DPS to a lot of the other DPS that I'm running into. So I like Freezing Fog here. Your Howling Blast with the Rhyme procs are going to be huge. With your Mastery build that I'm going to go over in a second, it's going to be huge. And it's just really good to have that Frost Fever do 20% more damage. It makes it a lot more similar to Unholy in the sense of all of your diseases are going to be doing a lot of damage, and they're going to be really helpful in terms of just keeping your damage input high while you're just going using your Frost Sights, your Obliterates, your Frost Strikes, your Howling Blast and Frost Fever with your Rhyme procs are going to be there to use, do a lot of damage, and just create a lot of really big numbers on your screen that are really fun to look at. 58, we're going to go with Ice Cap. I think Pillar of Frost is a really beneficial ability that increases your, it's a 20% strength increase, and it really does, all my time as Death, and I'm like, well, it's really not a palpable difference, I don't really see it. I see it now. It easily will increase my Frost Scythe crits from about 700 to 800k to about a 1.2 to 1.4 million k. So it's just a huge difference. I think Glacial Advance is not good to use that extra rune when you're going to be Frost Scything most of the time, as you'll see. And Avalanche is, it's too hit or miss for me to really know. So I like just having this ability, Ice Cap, and just, your Pillar Frost, even when it doesn't sync with Obliteration, is just going to be something that you want to keep off cooldown, or keep on cooldown, and it's just really going to be your best bet. 60 talents are kind of up to you. It depends upon the dungeon. I go with either Blinding Sheet or Winter is Coming. Your Remorseless Winter is going to be something that you will use before you walk into a big AoE fight so that you can use it, because as you're in the fight, you're going to be using a lot more Frost Scythe than you're going to be using Remorseless Winter. So I personally always pop my Remorseless Winter as I go into the fight, because my Frost Strike will give my runes back through the Runic Empowerment ability more often during the fight from the Remorseless Winter than it would be useful to use the Remorseless Winter when mobs are already almost dead anyway. So it's nice to use your Remorseless Winter before you go into a fight or as you're walking into the fight. You don't have to waste a Wraith Walk. You can pop this, use the GCD as you're going in, and it starts hitting enemies really easily, really quickly, and then you can start with your Howling Blast. Really just get in there and make things happen. 75, Inexorable Assault, I think, is the only one that's really viable here, because this your volatile shielding might be good for some affixes. Your AMS, for those that don't know, can take care of neurotic. It can take care of the when the mobs die and they explode. I'm totally bad with remembering affix names, by the way. And then they give you the bleeding debuff. It will remove that. So it depends upon how you want to use it. Obviously, this doesn't increase or decrease your cooldown, so this might be good for some fights. Your permafrost might be good for some fights to get that icy talons synchronization for some better damage absorption. But an inexorable assault, if you're not within 8 yards, you get 103,000 more frost damage, stacking with mastery. So I just find this to be your best DPS option. It's not a lot, but it makes a difference. 90 talents. A lot of people say Gathering Storm or Frozen Pulse. I say Frost Scythe. In my testing, Frost Scythe, especially with the critical strike dealing 4 times more damage, is just way better of an option than anything I've ever seen. And it's just so much fun because it's only 1 rune. It's got an 8-yard range. You don't have to be, if you get feared, if you get this, if you get that, you have your killing machine procs. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and you'll see in the clips I'll show in a second that it just works. It's just the best option. And in all of my Mythic Plus dungeons, Frost Scythe accounts for about 20 to 30% of my overall damage done as a character, so it's huge. 100 talents. Breath of Sindragosa is what most people would choose, and it's not at all a bad option. Hungry and Rune Weapon I don't find to be quite useful. A 3-minute cooldown, Breath of Sindragosa is what used to be, but whether or not it's better is kind of up to how you use it. I don't really like to stack runic power to then have to keep stacking runic power, because then you kind of, if you really want to make it good, you use your rune weapon here, and I just don't like it so much, so I stick with Obliteration. For 10 seconds, your Frost Strike and Howling Blast grant Killing Machine, and Obliterate costs 1 less rune. So in my testing, it's really great to pop this before a boss fight or a big AoE fight. It depends upon what your use is, because if you're going to be single target, you're going to use Obliterate. If you have 2 or more targets, you're going to Frost Scythe. I wouldn't suggest using your Obliterate, your Killing Machine procs. Well, I should say your Obliterate unless you have a Killing Machine proc, because the 2 runes for just the stagnant damage without the Killing Machine is a little bit It's not as powerful. I'd rather use a Frost Scythe twice, because that'll do equivalent or more damage, and you might get a Killing Machine proc from the auto-attacking that your Icy Talons will give. If you really don't have ring power anyway, which you should, in that case you'd use a Frost Strike. So it's really kind of a situational thing, but it's really good to go in there. You can basically, and I can actually show this before we get into the clips. So if you pop your Obliteration, you can start with a Howling Blast, and then you can Obliterate, and then Frost Strike if you don't have your Rhyme procs, and then Obliterate, and then Frost Strike, and then Obliterate, and hopefully I get a Rhyme proc here to show you. Howling Blast, Frost Scythe just to throw it in, Frost Strike, so there's your Howling Blast. So it really just, it's a great 10 to 15 seconds of just one cooldown, then the other ability, then the next ability. So basically the way I work it in is if I have so I'll go in with either a Howling Blast or a Frost Strike if I have runic power left over, which will proc a Frost Scythe or Obliterate. Depends upon if I'm single target, I'll use Obliterate. If there's 2 or more targets, I'll use Frost Scythe. And then that'll proc hopefully a Howling Blast. If not, you should probably have enough runic power to use a Frost Strike. If not, you can use a Howling Blast. AoE fights, obviously, with the Rhyme procs. You're basically just trying not to waste your Rhyme procs, and you're trying to get your Rhyme procs. So your Obliterate has a 45% chance, so I guess it's up to you how you want to use it. Your Frost Scythe has a 22.5% chance to proc your Rhyme. So single target fights, obviously you're going to have better luck using your Obliterate since it only costs 1 rune now. But if there's really a large amount of mobs, so I would say somewhere in the ballpark of 4-ish mobs, your Frost Scythe is just going to be a better damaging ability, even to not chance that extra 22.5% to get Rhyme. I just think that the 4 times critical strike, it's going to be hitting easily 1 million on every target, and your Rhyme, depends upon if you have Pillar of Frost active or not, could deal up to 3 to 4 million damage on a single target, and then it disperses from there. but I just think that that's the greatest way to play your Frost Death Knights. As you're seeing from the clips that I'm showing right now, it just works a lot more efficiently that way, and like I said, as a Mythic Plus player, you're supposed to be going for overall utility, overall damage done, and that comes in play with your Blinding Sheet, or with your your Winter is Coming. Your Remorseless Winter is only on a 20-second cooldown, so if there's a dungeon, or if you're skilled enough that you can fit in your runes really in an effective manner, your Winter is Coming is going to be a really good ability. The only problem is it has to be while your Pillar of Frost is active, so it's kind of hard to sync up, but with the Ice Cap ability, it makes it a little bit easier. So a lot of this build that I have and that I like running the best is really more focused on just really good synchronization, and a class that's a lot more fun to play, in my opinion, than like a Breath of Sindragosa build, because I feel that there's always an ability to use, and maybe this is just how they've improved on Death Knights as a whole, but there's always an ability to use. Your runic power is really straight and concise. Your runes are really easy to use now, and I just think that this is the way to go. Obviously, you're going to save your Sindragosa's Fury artifact ability for when you have a big group of mobs. I think that it's really worth it. So like DHT, after the tree boss, you go and you have those little oozes. That's a great time to use it. It basically will wipe the entire group out on any Mythic Plus difficulty, and it just works the best. Your trinkets are going to really miles per vary based on what you have. I have Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish. I don't really have any other ones right now, so this is really a guide without that, because I feel that the legendaries will benefit a lot of people, and a lot of different legendaries will work better than others. But this is kind of just for those that are getting started, want to get into it, don't necessarily have access to all of the legendaries, because in all of my tastes of playing, I only have one DPS trinket, and ironically a blood DPS, or a blood DK trinket. So, or legendary, I mean. So I don't really have access to all of those, and I'm taking the perspective of those that don't have access to all of those. So obviously, I'll put in the description which ones are better than others, and kind of a ranking system. But I like Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, and I'm really lucky to have gotten it. But again, this is not a video to talk about how good specific legendaries are, because your mileage may vary. But at the end of the day, your stats are going to be kind of... I've heard a lot of different things about it. So a lot of people say get your crit to at least 20%, which I think is very good, because your criticals will make very good obliterates, very good frost ice, and very good howling blasts. It's just really good to have at least 20% crit. I find that to be pretty much a good sweet spot, 20-25% depending upon your gear. Then I think Mastery is the most important, because your Frost Scythe and Howling Blast deal frost damage, as well as your Frost Strike. So really, Obliterate is your only ability that does physical damage. So that's why I like using Frost Scythe more in certain situations with a Mastery build, because that 40%-ish that you'll end up having is going to really hit harder on those, and you'll get 1.5, 1.7 million crit Frost Ice and 3 to 4 million hit Howling Blasts, and you'll see it on your bars, and you're like, wait, how did that happen? And you'll look at your recount after the dungeon and just oogle at the immense amount of numbers that you're doing. Then I think Haste is going to be your best option from there, because it's really cool, especially with your Obliteration Pillar of Frost, to just get haste. You want haste, you want haste, you want haste, because that just regenerates your runes faster and faster and faster, gives you more abilities to use, and it just keeps things... I'm at about 20% right now, and I feel that that's a pretty good balance, where I'm never really thinking I don't have anything to use, because there's always... I find it in such a rare occasion that I don't have anything to use. And when I do, I probably have my Empowered Rune Weapon available to use anyway. Beyond that is your versatility. I don't think that versatility is a great place to be right now. I think that it's great for reducing damage taken, but really for Mythic Pluses, you shouldn't be taking a lot of damage anyway. Hopefully you're with a good enough group, or you can find a good enough group that, like, the tank will handle all the, eat all the extra damage, and you won't get a Neurotic Strike, for example, or whatever the case may be. When the aggro drops, you'll probably be the first one to get it on that affix, but for the most part, your tank should be handling most of that. And I think that versatility, although it increases all your damage done, I think you get more mileage out of your Mastery, your Haste, and your Crit. Just because I think they're all very viable stats that really do make a difference in a Frost Death Knight. And fortunately, and unfortunately for us, all 3 of them are incredible. Versatility usually on my other characters is my go-to, so I'm like, oh, more damage done, less damage taken, sounds good. You know, maybe on other builds or other classes, Critical Strike doesn't do so much, maybe Haste doesn't do so much, maybe I'm not a fan of the Mastery. In this case, it works for everything in some sense to a very high amount, so I like to go with that build. I hope that this has given you a pretty good insight on how to run it a little bit different. I made a 6.2.3 Paladin guide a while back, obviously a while back, and it really got some really bad reviews on it because a lot of people are like, well, this isn't viable or this is better. I like to play the game to enjoy the game. This is how I build my character, to have a lot of fun. I see a lot of big numbers. I've actually had a lot more success as somebody who doesn't typically top charts, topping charts. And I just think that this is a really fun build that if you're interested in Frost and you're on Holy or Blood right now, or you're just thinking of leveling a Death Knight, this is a really fun place to start. And I think that even as you level, this is a fun place to level because all of these abilities will really help with your leveling. I might choose like a Volatile Shielding or a Permafrost instead of an Inexorable Assault, but it's, I mean, like I said, your mileage may vary for a lot of different situations. This is a general guide. This is how I like to play my Frost Death Knight. Obviously, your opinions might differ, your build might differ, but this is how I find the most success. I gem Haste and enchant Haste and Strength. I go with the Haste food if possible. Obviously, the Strength food through like a well-fed table will be better, but I like to do those, and that I just find that works the best. Obviously, your Mastery might be a better option, but it really depends upon how you go. I like to enchant and gem Haste to kind of bring it back to about equal levels. So my crit and Haste are typically about the same level. Then I just stack Mastery depending upon what gear or item level I need. And then versatility is kind of the ugly cousin to the situation. So hopefully this helped you out in some sense, and hopefully you can get some good insight out of this and really just top the charts in your Mythic Pluses and be really viable and have a lot of fun playing this class. I, in the last expansion, had almost a 100 of everything, and I find in this expansion, every time I play something other than my Death Knight, I find myself wanting to come back to my Death Knight. It's such a viable spec, such a viable class now, and it's just so much more fun to play, on top of how fun it was to play in previous expansions. So thank you everybody for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you next time. Feel free to leave your comments and thoughts down below, and yeah, we'll talk to you in a bit. Take care, everybody.